is that they're, here we have the Google guys now, another good example. So the Google guy, one of them has a wife now, and apparently she wants to get into the genetic engineering business, and so he sets up a business for her, and he's promoting it. And what venture capitalist is going to invest in anybody who intends to compete against him? Nobody, no chance. So she's going to own the market merely because of who her husband is, merely because they have an inexhaustible supply of money. There's no way she's going to go bankrupt, and nobody's going to sit there and take that on. Nobody's going to have the balls to invest their life, their welfare, in a contest they know they can't win because they don't have the capacity to lose all their money.
Owning the means of production isn't all cream and gravy the way the Marxists would make you think it is.
Oh, come on. It's just so silly. They own, now the wealthiest 5% own something like 3/4 of the wealth of the nation. Of course it works out in the end. I mean, you can point to little examples where somebody went bankrupt, but look at the liability thing, and then we'll get to the inheritance argument, because I'm sure your argument is that inheritance should be free and unencumbered. But what about debt? Okay, because debt, with the bankruptcy scenario, the risk you're talking about is never the full risk. The full risk of failure is actually having to pay your damn debts. Okay, so why can't their children of these risk takers be obliged to pay back the money? All right, I mean, if they can inherit the profit, why don't they inherit the liability? Why aren't the stockholders of Enron, who gleaned huge profits, liable for the reckless business practices that were taking place while they were gleaning those profits? All right, they shouldn't be off the hook because they bailed out soon enough, because they bailed out and avoided liability. Bullshit. They invested in a crooked scheme. They should be liable for that scheme, not the guy who was lied to and ripped off in a criminal manner. Those creditors shouldn't be the ones that lose the money. It should be the goddamn people that glean the profit off the illegal business practices.
Actually very difficult to get hold of the means of production, and you have to maintain good order with those means of production, or else someone will take them from you in a free economy. So the poor man...
Yeah, all you have to do is run a business reasonably, and you will succeed as long as supply exists and you don't have 7,000 competitors, and especially if you don't have a Microsoft competitor or some other competitor who gets a huge amount of money from the stock market or some other place by going public, and then can just start playing all kinds of predatory games to just destroy all competition so he can extort his price for a crappy piece of shit operating system.
What does the poor man have to do to make a living at Henry Ford's factory? Granted, it took Henry Ford 30 years of hard work before he was able to build his massive factory that he had dreamt of. Years and years of single-minded effort.
Yeah, well, so what? There's lots of people that did years and years of single-minded effort. Okay, the Wright brothers did years and years of single-minded effort, and they died poor. Thomas Edison might be another good example. He put all his money back into something. He was always reinvesting, and his goal wasn't to be a rich fuck. Okay, and so there's plenty of evidence of what Henry Ford turned into. He was an elitist. I mean, they went out to Yellowstone Park and bought up half the land, and they were, they were living like kings. Come on, get real.
Single-minded obsession with productivity and efficiency. He didn't spend his time lollygagging at the five and dime.
Yeah, efficiency defined by extracting as much work as possible out of the cheapest labor possible. That was the scenario, and he resisted labor unions for years. Lots of negatives tied to that example. It is not a completely positive example.
He didn't spend his time, going around with women who weren't his wife after work at night. He spent his time working hard to make sure that Ford was the best car company that he could make it.
Yeah, well, like I say, he worked very hard at destroying unions, too. He worked very hard at a lot of negative things, socially destructive things to ensure that he could maintain his slave labor force.
And when he finally gets his factory built, after all these years of effort, that's what it takes him to get his factory. What does it take you to get a job in his factory? All you have to do is promise to turn wrenches. You're going to show up every day and you're going to turn this wrench on these bolts.
Yeah, and perhaps risk your life and break your back and spend your life in tedium, just gnawing, aching tedium. and not even allowed to be sick for 3 days, and having all kinds of other unpleasantries imposed on you, harsh, hot working conditions, no medical benefits, no health care, high risk labor. Come on, get real.
And you didn't have to invest anything. You don't have to buy stock in the company. You don't have to do anything at all besides show up and work.
Right. Well, that's all the fucking people had to do that built the pyramids, right? If they just showed up and did their work, no one's going to whip them. So yeah, if you just do your job and break your back for the emperor, everything will be just peachy keen. Fuck you.
So how much better off is Henry Ford? Sure, he has the means of production, but his life has been stapled down by it.
Right, but how much better off are all the legacy, all the people tied to Henry Ford, all the little richies they'll have this little cushy life provided for them by Henry Ford. That's the other equation. The people never have to work a day in their life. They don't have to do any of the high-pressure Henry Ford, I'm starting a business bullshit. No, they just inherit it. Okay, what about that problem?
Go in and take advantage of his means of production for free. He'll pay you to go in there and use his tools to make cars for other people so that you can benefit other people, which means you get paid. And then
yeah, you get paid a tiny percentage of the real value of the work you did. I mean, you go out and build the bridge, you do the work, you sweat, you risk, and some asshole, for no other reason because he inherited control, gets to glean 25% or 45% or 85% of the value of your work.
You can do something with your pay. Now, what sense does it make to say that the poor person's held down unless they own a factory of their own? That poor person doesn't need a factory. They probably don't.
They're held down because they're never given control, the real control over the real value of what they've done. So they aren't allowed to buy the twice as big house or the 2 cars or the better television or all the other things they would be allowed to buy if they got paid the real value of their work. And they're not allowed to accrue the surplus. Many, especially migrant laborers and a lot of others, they're only working hand to mouth, so they don't even get to acquire any security, any safety net for their future, or to make sure that they can properly even take care of their kids. I mean, that's the insidiousness of this scenario. You're not just stealing a surplus, a luxury off of people, you're stealing the substance of their life.
Want a factory. If they had one, they'd probably either let it run down and break or they'd sell it. So let's let the poor people do what they want with their lives, namely, consume
what they want. They want to get into an extortion contract with a monarch. That's, the serfs wanted to be owned by the king and the nobles. That's the way they wanted it. I mean, get real.
They produce virtually immediately. And let's let the wealthy and the far-sighted do what they want with theirs.
The far-sighted, no, the very narrow-sighted, the Enron-sighted, the Tyco-sighted, the $800 billion bailout-sighted, all right, the crooks and the shyster, the spam-sighted, the crappy product-sighted, the bullshit company, let's set it up and we'll make a huge profit in 3 years and then we'll do nothing to maintain the company and just let it fall to pieces because we'll just extract our fucking profit-sighted. That's all you're talking about here. The crooks and the criminals, the worst kind of criminals.
To save up, to put off consumption, to invest. Let's let them both do as they please. Because
do as they please based on a circumstance that has nothing to do with their creation or their abilities. Let the birthright bestow itself on the inherentee, okay, and let them let them take their burden of their inheritance and their control of a system. What the hell is that? That doesn't make any sense. There's no earn. There's no fucking fairness in here. There's no equity in here. There's not a freaking horse race where all the horses start the same place. So it doesn't make any freaking sense.
I'm in favor of freedom.
Yes, right.
ladies
The
and gentlemen.
freedom to be abused, the freedom to abuse. That's all you're in favor of. You're afraid. You're in favor of fake advantages, artificial advantages, and exploitation, and taking advantage of artificial circumstances. So if too many people are born in a certain era and there's a surplus of labor, yes, let the owners, let the inheritees, the legacy wealth capitalist holders of the economy exploit the hell out of them. Okay, what a pile of crap. I mean, you really understand how ethically depraved you are? What a sick motherfucker you are. Yeah, enough said. So, the end. Thank you very much. That was lots of fun.